So when you organize data, you basically have two options. One is the file-based system and one is the database approach. And to illustrate the differences of these, I'm going to use the example of storing articles for a research paper, since that is something that pretty much all of us have done at least one or two times. So a file-based system is probably what your own computer looks like. For example, for my dissertation, I have a folder that has different subfolders inside of it and random files that didn't make its way into a subfolder. Each of those folders has a bunch of PDFs inside of it that are a bunch of research articles for the document, and then I've got a long handful of draft 1, draft 2, draft 3 of the paper. That is an example of a computer file-based system. A physical approach would be the old file cabinets that you or maybe your parents had. Also includes spreadsheets and other things, to-do lists, like post-it notes on boards like this over here. Databases, on the other hand, are more complex organizational systems for data that allow for easier and faster access, retrieval, and use of data. So if you have a large amount of data, it's the smarter way of approaching things, especially if you need it for repeated use. Programs that use databases include Microsoft Access, MySQL, Oracle, Amazon SimpleDB. Those are all database management systems, and we'll talk a little bit more about those in a bit. So let's talk a little bit more about the file-based approach and why it's not always the best thing. So like I said, with the file-based approach, it probably looks like a bunch of PDFs and Word docs in folders on your desktop. So some of the issues that you or I have had in the past. So data redundancy. You have the same article downloaded from multiple classes with different file names. What's the problem with this? It eats up valuable space. It's inefficient to update if you're in multiple locations and it's like not a PDF, but like a Word doc or Excel file. And if you have it in multiple locations that is something you do need to update, you increase the chance of errors. A better example of this is you have the Word doc syllabus for this class and you have the Canvas one. I am just going to say that I'm not going to update the Word doc one. All updates are going to be in the Canvas one because I'm not trying to do that. But I also have all the due dates in the modules inside of the PowerPoints themselves, and so because it's redundant all over the place, it's really easy for me to make a mistake. So that's the challenge with data redundancy. Data isolation. Someone can gatekeep access from others. So isolation occurs like at work. HR, like one department of HR might own something, and another department of HR owns other data, and they don't talk to each other. They make you like actually request for certain data. And what happens with this is that there's like political mess. It's difficult to get the information that you need, or you don't even know that it exists in the first place. And it can slow things down, and it gets expensive because of that. Data integrity. So that's the failure to correctly update redundant data, which I referred to earlier. So that can happen with one person trying to do that. It can also happen inside of programs. So for example, when I had a G Sheet which is Google's, it's like Google Docs version of Excel, that was being used by multiple users, and someone from the UK somewhere tried to open it, and so the time zones got all wacky when they tried to edit it because G Sheets got super confused. So all the data got mangled up because of that. Data security. So this is especially important if you have personally identifiable information, which is the PII. So sometimes you do need to gatekeep data in order to prevent people from seeing data that they shouldn't be able to see. So for example, you might be trying to send an HR file with all of the email addresses and employee names of people that have started within like the last 3 months because you're doing an onboarding program. But you might accidentally send them like the full file with their salary information and all kind of stuff. So it's really easy to make those kind of mistakes with a file-based approach where you're not carefully selecting what information that they should get. Concurrency access. That's when multiple people should be able to access something all at once. A good example of this is something like Google Drive, where you can work on a document at the same time, which enables efficiency, versus you have something like SharePoint, or worse, you're emailing drafts back and forth with group members, which is, if you work on the project together, that's going to be what happens, because we're not going to have that ability with the way that we're working. So anytime you're sharing something that doesn't transfer like that, you create issues with either version conflicts from opening at the same time, or you can't access it at all. So there's a lot of issues with file-based approach, which is why we're learning about databases.